Welcome to Digging In with the DLCs, where we discuss the digital influence on teaching and learning. In this episode, we will look at how the FHS librarian and English teachers collaborated to use Genially for students' digital readers' notebooks. Let's dig in.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Hopkins, and I'm the DLC at Frisco High School.
Hi, my name is Mindy Purcell, and I'm the librarian at Frisco High School.
Hello, my name is Amity Harrington, and I teach English 2 on level and English 2 pre-AP at Frisco High School. Readers' notebooks are helpful to our students, both on level and pre-AP, because it allows them to refer back to their thoughts and to see how their thoughts and their analysis and their personal connections have grown and changed as their understanding of the novel grows and changes, or whatever our theme is, even if it's not a novel, even if it's like a thematic unit, like what's the nature of suspense or something like that. COVID and going virtual and moving more toward future ready, and also wanting to keep the kids more engaged. I came to Mindy with a weird, vague idea, and I wasn't 100% sure how I wanted it organized, but I knew what I wanted it to do. And so after talking through it with Mindy, she was able to sort through my jumble and come up with a cohesive plan for students.
Well, first, I just love Genially, and there might be a little bit of a learning curve for the kids, but I think once they got in there, they would love the many features that Genially has to offer, in the way you can customize things. You can bring things easily into it. I typically connect Canva, create things in Canva, and I add them to my Geniallys. I just like that there are so many options. Kids need to have options, and that gives them, they have so many templates to choose from, and I think the students liked that they had choices in that capacity.
Mindy was able to take my rough idea of what I wanted and put it together in a visually appealing digital way. And she also came into my classroom and helped my students learn the new program that we were using, and that was really helpful to my kiddos as well.
So I chose Genially, and then I created a sample. The first thing I did was talk to the teachers, went to a PLC, and we discussed what they wanted the students to have in their digital notebook. And then I took those notes and I went back to the library and I created a sample. And in that sample, I made sure to include all the different things that Genially includes, or the options that they have. So for example, going back to a certain page, going forward to a certain page, things like that the students wouldn't necessarily know how to do. So I included all of those things in the sample. And then ultimately, I shared the sample with the teachers, but I also went in and they put it in their Canvas. And then I went in and I taught the kids. I explained to them what the sample was. I showed them the sample. I showed them everything about the sample that they would have to have in their digital notebook. And then I actually walked the kids through the process of creating their own. And in other words, they got to create their own template. We didn't get into all the details of it as far as the specifics, like the graphics they used and things like that. It was the big picture of, you need these pages, you need to have these things linked, and so forth. So I spent the time teaching all of that to the students, and then they had the freedom to go back in and personalize it. And they also know how to use Canva and other things that I've taught them, and showed them that they could make things in another tool and then upload it into Genially, which was great. And so it was a lot of teaching, but on the other side of it, the kids loved it, and I think ultimately the products were pretty amazing.
Mindy came in and showed my students what Genially could do, and then we spent probably about, when they were first getting it set up and learning, we would spend the last 20 minutes of class for them to kind of play with it and get it how they wanted. But then after we would complete a reading, usually, so probably once a week, they would have time to update their readers' notebooks and to reflect back on it and to connect it to whatever the thematic topic was. And it was just a good way to keep them engaged for the full 90 minutes instead of just giving up the last 5 minutes, or them starting to get, if they started to like lose interest in what we were doing, it was a good way to like kind of stop and give them a chance to reflect on something. So we wouldn't always have to do it at like the end of something. We could also do it in the middle so that we could chunk it, and it fit really, really well with getting them to analyze the text throughout and not just to kind of zone out in the middle for on level. For pre-AP, it gave them a chance to consistently go back and make those strong thematic connections throughout a work. Even my hesitant learners, even my ones who maybe would have been afraid to speak out loud or answer questions in front of a whole class, because this was in the beginning of the year before we had built up that community, they could give their ideas in their digital notebooks. So when I called on them to ask a question, they had already thought it through. So it made students who were maybe more hesitant to speak out and more afraid of kind of that peer judgment, it made them much more engaged. And while they were working on this in class, they were highly engaged, and they liked it, and they played with it, and it was enjoyable to them. Because we hadn't done something exactly like this before and the curriculum has changed, I can only judge what their writing and what their analysis was like, and I could tell that they had given what we read more thought and given themselves more time to process and think about what we read. Originally, in the beginning, they thought I was crazy, and they were uncomfortable with it, and they were frustrated with it. But once they got past that and they started to trust themselves and they started to dive into it with themselves, I felt like I got more creativity from them than otherwise I would ordinarily get.
Well, as a former English teacher, I have to say my favorite part of the whole experience was teaching the kids how to use the digital tool. I just love the teaching component of it. Of course, I love to work with the teachers, so that was also a great part, but just getting in the classroom and being hands-on with the kids, COVID style, and teaching them and watching their brains just start working and their creativity coming to life, and realizing that they learned something that they could use again for something else. It's just a good feeling. The kids seem to really like it too.
Seeing the students taking ownership of what they were doing and creating something that they didn't rush through and that they took time and pride in.
That wraps up this episode of Digging In with the DLCs. We want to thank Mindy Purcell and Amity Harrington for sharing their expertise in Genially and digital readers' notebooks. Genially is an amazing tool, and it can be used in any subject area. Check it out and see how you might be able to use it with your students. Need help? Just contact your DLC. Thanks for watching.